She told me I was a very powerful psychic, which was funny because she was the psychic and I had gone to her for a reading. I was 20 years old at the time, and as 20-year-olds are, I was looking for some direction and some meaning and maybe like a big symbol from the world. And she said, "You are really powerful." She said, "Are there any psychics in your family?" And actually there are. So my granddad used to have visions. One of my aunties did. On one side, I've got cousins who are twins. One's a psychic, one's a healer, and another cousin on the other side who has visions as well. So it's there, right? It's there. So I thought, yeah, I do. And she said, "Look, I don't think your power should go unmanifested. Why don't we start with a little bit of training? Next weekend, I'm running a Reiki weekend. You could come down, you could learn some Reiki. I'll give you a discount if you pay cash. Just don't tell anyone else that you're getting a discount." And I thought, this makes sense. So the next weekend, I went down to her house again, and it's me, 20 years old and male, and everyone else is a middle-aged woman, and that's fine. I don't mind being the odd one out. And we begin to learn Reiki after I pay my little cash. So you learn to heal through love and light. Someone opens your channel for the first time. They sit you in a room by yourself. They run a symbol over you, and suddenly you can do Reiki because you've paid the fee. And you get straight into practicing as well. So we would take turns. So one by one, someone would lay down and everyone else would put their hands on that person. And you would send universal love and light into the person that you were healing. And afterward, Margaret, so that's the psychic, she would say to everyone, "Did you see anything? Did you feel anything? Any thoughts on the Reiki you just did?" Sure, reflective, we're learning. There was one woman, and her name was Demi, and Demi was about 40 years old, and we healed her. She laid down, and we put our hands on her, and afterwards Margaret said, "Did anyone see or feel anything?" And I said, "Do you know what? I kind of did." And Margaret says, "Oh, what did you see or feel?" And I just said, "Oh, when I put my hands on Demi, and I sent universal love and light, I just saw a whirlpool. And in that whirlpool, I saw a boat, and on that boat, I saw a little Cupid doll, a doll of a baby, and the boat was going down the whirlpool. Just like a daydream, not like a vision, like a daydream." And Demi burst out crying and left the room. And there was a massive hubbub, and I felt incredibly uncomfortable. I was suddenly in this room with a group of middle-aged strangers, and Margaret and Demi had left. About 15 minutes later, Margaret and Demi come back, and she's consoled herself, she's kind of put herself together. And Demi says to everyone, "I've actually been toying with the idea of having kids, and I've realized it's not going to happen. The idea has gone down the drain, and you have seen that." I'm 20, I have no idea how to deal with this. I say, sorry. And Margaret says, "Jeffrey, you are a very powerful psychic. You need to come and train with me." And I say, "Well, that sounds right, yeah." So I start going to Margaret's house every Monday night, and I pay for the psychic lessons. I pay cash, $100 a time. I was working at Sizzler at the time. That was a bit of money. And I would go and visit Margaret, and I actually already did read tarot. I had tarot decks. It was a kind of a hobby, but Margaret began to speak to me about what psychic power was. She spoke to me about the city of Atlantis. She spoke to me about energy. She spoke to me about Rosicrucians. But week on week, I was like, I don't really know if this psychic stuff is going anywhere. I feel like I'm just kind of paying this woman to hang out with her. She had a really complex backstory. She had an abusive ex-husband. She told me that she had cancer. And when I asked about chemotherapy, she was really vague on the details of how that worked, didn't want to talk about it. Okay. But I liked her, and we used to smoke cigarettes together, and it was nice to have this kind of undivided attention. And then one day she said, "Well, Jeffrey, I think it's time for you to meet Jesus." And I said, "Jesus?" And she said, "Jesus." She said, "In a few more sessions, I will help you meet Jesus." And I thought, that sounds odd. And we did a few more sessions, and eventually there came the session. She was like, okay, you're going to meet Jesus. And we went into another room, and we sat down, and she said, close your eyes. And she talked me through a guided meditation. And in the meditation, I saw Jesus, and he hugged me. And afterwards, Margaret said, you've met Jesus. And I thought, not really. I thought I kind of imagined Jesus a bit because you told me to. It wasn't what I had been thinking was going to go on for months, but okay, cool, I guess I've met Jesus. Here's your $100. I'm a theatre director, and so my first ever show was about to debut at the Blue Room Theatre, which is just down the road. It's a small theatre, smaller than this. And Margaret knew that, and one day she said, I know someone very high up in the arts, and I'm going to send that person to your play, and if your play is good, he's going to really open doors for you. He's really going to be able to give you a huge career. And I said, wow, okay, that's really intense. Who's your friend that's going to come and see my play at the Blue Room? And she said, Hugh Jackman. And I said, Hugh Jackman? And she said, Hugh Jackman. Oh, Hugh Jackman is going to come and see my play. I said, wow, Margaret, that's really big. And she said, but he's going to wear prosthetics. He's going to wear full prosthetics and a kind of costume, because obviously he can't go out in public, so you won't know when he's gone to your play. But he will tell me how your play was, and he'll tell me if he's going to open doors for you, for your career. I said, thanks, Margaret. And I got in my car and I began driving home. And like, it's really obvious when you have to tell the story back. And the curtain had just fallen. And I thought back to that first Reiki weekend, and there's a detail I haven't quite been honest about, because we all had to introduce ourselves. And that woman who I saw the whirlpool and the boat and the baby, this is how she introduced herself. She said, hi, I'm Demi. I'm 40 years old. I live with my partner, and I've got 2 dogs and 2 cats, and they're my children. So I knew she wanted kids. I didn't think I was cold reading this woman. I really didn't. I wasn't trying to be conniving or clever. That's how she'd introduced herself. Did I see anything? Yes. My brain had processed this thing into an image, and I had said the image out loud, and it had made me think I had a power. For a moment. And I was driving home the last time I saw Margaret, and she did actually call me for months afterwards. She left voicemails. She really wanted to reconnect. I just never spoke to her again. But I remember driving home that last time and thinking, how did she take advantage of me? I'd actually given her quite a bit of money. Did she take advantage of me because she made me feel psychic and I really wanted to be psychic? No. She managed to take advantage of me because she made me feel special. And I really wanted to be special.